it was neat. I will tell you that, and I know about where it was, but we came through the woods, sort of right at the edge of the woods, and these are pine trees mostly. There was a barbed wire fence, but you couldn't see it very well because there was, and I don't know what the plant was, but it was stalked plant.
Kudzu?
No. It was kind of like wheat. I just can't remember the name of it right now. Broom straw kind of. So here we come roaring through the woods, and of course Sugar saw the fence and stopped.
You didn't.
I went right over the top, over the fence, onto the other side. And you know what, 12 years old, didn't hurt me.
How'd you land?
Who knows? But I do remember that. And that's really the only experiences.
Only accident you remember that happened to you personally?
Yeah. But I mean, I rode that pony a lot.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't, and again, she wasn't a pony, but she wasn't a full-grown horse. I don't know what you call them. But it was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. There's that lady again that we don't know who it is.
Yeah.
Right? And there's the stand,
Mm-hmm.
covered stand. So would people like, I mean, did you have like bleachers? Were there bleachers in that stand? Or
No, but people would come and there were chairs or something.
who people like friends of Pond Nanas would come and just watch all?
Yeah, and Mr. and Miss Briggs.
Okay. Would the Briggs invite their friends to come over?
Probably.
So Mr. Briggs had other employees, right? Nana wasn't his only employee.
Oh, Lord, they probably had 6 or 8 women in the secretarial pool,
Mm-hmm.
and Nana was the boss.
Okay.
And I remember the building, and it's still there, but they probably changed it all around. I know they added a second level to it, but it was a cool building.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Briggs, you would go in and go through, there was a bar, and you'd go through the door, and the secretaries were all here.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Briggs had his office in the corner,
Mm-hmm.
and my mother's office was over here next to his, and between was a bathroom and or certainly toilets, probably a shower maybe, I don't know, but
Why would people spend the night there?
no, but it was a night. Okay, suppose you're working and you needed to go out after work to some sort of a social event. So
Mm-hmm.
this was where you could change clothes and clean up and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a door that went through into the factory space.
Uh-huh.
And it was 2 floors, and it was, you know, they had all of the downstairs, all of the machinery that did the drilling and the turning and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was fully integrated. Upstairs, they had the upholstery area
Mm-hmm.
and all of that. And of course, I had the run of the place.
Mm-hmm. And this was also furniture manufacturing.
Oh, yeah.
So Oscar and Neat both worked in the furniture
Yeah. She
furniture
would-
making.
and she was the secretary.
Uh-huh.
Well, actually, secretary treasurer, excuse
Uh-huh.
me. And Oscar was a salesman.
So was there, like, I mean, I know probably the answer to this, but they both worked in furniture business. Was there any kind of rivalry? Like, would Oscar be jealous of Nana's job?
Well, who knows? But as far as I never detected that.
Uh-huh.
And
so when you were really little, those were the jobs that they had. That's what you remember going all the way back to your earliest childhood memories?
well, up to, and I'm guessing, but I would say maybe I was 10 or 11 years old when Oscar left and started and went in with Mr. Hawks. But in my early preteen, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, we made several trips over Christmas to Florida and to the Miami area, Miami Beach. We stayed in North Miami Beach, and there's a movie of that in there.
Okay.
In this motel, and it had a nice restaurant and all, and it could have been a Howard Johnson's, I don't know, but it was like that out on the highway. And then the beach was behind.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would go in, primarily to Miami Beach, and it was really cool because it was all Art Deco.
Mm-hmm.
And they had built these artificial islands with little causeways that went over to them.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where the really wealthy people and movie stars and all of that had places.
So would you go down there with the Briggs, Mr. and Miss Briggs?
The 5 of us.
Okay. And so a minute ago you said Oscar left, so he worked at Mr. Briggs's also? He and Nana both worked for Mr. Briggs, and then Oscar left later on.
Yeah, and he was like an outside salesman.
Okay.
He traveled, sold furniture.
How could he be a salesman if he was not good dealing with people?
Well, he was. I mean, he was a good salesman.
Uh-huh.
And I think I probably learned maybe a little bit from him and from her. And I don't know, I guess who knows? He could have very possibly, because his personality, said, I'm not working for somebody else. I'm going to do my own thing. And he probably wasn't as good at that. Mr. Briggs was excellent. I mean, he grew up in an upper class family. Their family made buggies. We had one in the meat house for a while. Gorgeous piece of machinery.
You mean like a horse drum, like with a cover?
Yeah.
Over the.
Oh, it was gorgeous. And so Mr. Briggs was involved in that. His dad ran it, and then he had an older brother. And so it was kind of natural, although I don't have any of the history of it. However, it might be, a lot of it might be available in High Point. And he started this company or bought into it, or maybe it was initially the part of the buggy company, and then he inherited, I don't know, but it became Briggs Manufacturing Company. And it was kind of a big deal. They made case goods, which is wooden furniture, and they made upholstered furniture. And it was high class stuff.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so we're looking at this most fantastic photograph
And
of
of
that
course,
side of
as
the
you
house.
know, that's the fireplace. The door right there comes out on the porch. And he put the partition right there. It came out, and that enclosed the Knotty Pine room, because this window looked out on the porch. Later. Go ahead.
So you think he got rid of those tapered posts, or did he just build around them? Did he just enclose them?
He had to get rid of them here. I think that's probably the width of the Knotty Pine room. Weren't those still there across the front?
Nope. Everything was either, I don't remember exactly, but I think he got rid of them because the bottom part of the post, he just plastered over that or something, but the rest of it just became a wall.
Okay.
Most of the windows all the way around that porch. So he had to get rid of them, but that's just, I mean, those are gorgeous.
Well, but now this window stayed, and the two in the front stayed.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm talking about the outer wall that he built around the front porch.
Yeah.
And, it was neat, the way those windows cranked open,
And there was 2 or 3 windows high here Did you all ever sleep in that room? Because
All the time.
Little sofa bed. In
Lori and I used to sleep in there all the time.
Okay.
And it was freezing cold because I don't think it was very well insulated. And we had a little heater in there. And
Yeah.
And one of my favorite childhood memories is it snowed. We were there. I don't know if you and Mama were there or not, but it was clearly in the wintertime and it was snowing. No, wait, I'm sorry. It had to be the summertime because it rained. We had this just tremendous thunderstorm, and the rain was just pouring down in sheets of rain. And me and Laura standing up on that sofa looking out the window, and we could see the pasture down there where the creek was filling up with water.
Yeah, right.
And then Oscar got up, and he took me and Lori and David in the van, and we drove down across, and the water was already going over the top of the road at that point.
Yeah.
And we drove all the way around, and then took the road, because you went up the hill, and then you made a left around that corner, and then you went down and you hooked up with a dead ended at that road that took you up to 5 Points or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But if you went the other way to your left, you crossed the bridge across the river, Deep River. Well, we went left down to where Deep River was, and the whole field down there in the river bottom was full of, and this was, I don't even know what time of the morning it was. It had to be like 2 or 3 in the morning that he did this.
Who knows? It could have been a hurricane. I remember a couple of times being there when hurricanes came through, and it rained like crazy.
But what was funny was I'm pretty sure Oscar woke up. I don't think we woke him up. I think he woke up because he was all excited about it, and I guess he was just a big old kid, and he took us out. He took us out cruising to see what all the flood was doing.
Yeah. That's him.
All right, there's that little girl again.
I know it.
Now, do you recognize the lady there? Because maybe that lady is her mother.
I don't. I want to almost say it was Rose Yarborough, but I don't think it was.
And did they have kids?
They adopted one daughter. I don't think that's her, but it could be.
What was her name?
Suzanne.
Well, she's in a lot of pictures, and so are they. So
she's probably still around. I should ask her. They live in Burlington. That's Mrs. Briggs.
You see where Oscar came in and put an awning over the back door?
Yeah, and the shutters.
Yeah, now we got half shutters, very arts and crafts shutters. I like this picture a lot.
That's the 50 Oldsmobile.
I know. That's a cool picture.
Nice car.
And that was Oscar's car?
Yeah.
Did you later drive that car?
Well, it never was mine, but he let me.
What? Let you what?
Soup it up, put dual exhaust on it,
And how did you know how to do all that stuff?
Well, I don't know. I was getting Hot Rod magazines. You got somebody to do it. They had loud mufflers on it. That sucker would run too.
Really?
Yeah.
How fast?
Well, I mean, this is way back.
Yeah.
But it would probably outrun, and we used to do a little bit of drag racing in town.
Where?
Stoplight, Main Street, stoplight to stoplight.
Who's we?
Kids, my buddies.
Your derelict high school buddies that you got in trouble with all the time?
Yeah. And that car would outrun 90% of the cars on the road, or more. It was a go-getter. 88, Rocket 88.
Was it a rocket when you put pedal to the metal?
Well, that's what Oldsmobile called it.
What? A rocket?
Yeah. See, and I know this because I read a lot about GM.
Uh-huh.
In that era, that car was the one that they experimented with, and it was the hot rod car. Later, it became the Pontiac and the GTO.
Yeah.
And but that was what they did.
And so he eventually got rid of it.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to it, to tell you the truth. Before that, she had a Chrysler, and he had a slope back. I think it was 46 or 47 Oldsmobile.
Slope back.
Well, yeah, you've seen them. Roof comes up, front the doors, and it's just 2-door, and then it goes down like that.
Uh-huh.
If there's not a picture of one in there, I'll show you one.
Okay.
But that was the style they used for a while.
That's a beautiful car. And so these were the outbuildings, and I remember them as little kids. And can you tell me what each building was used for?
Well, that was a little barn, and that's where Sugar Plum
This
was
was always
kept.
the chicken house over here.
Yeah,
Okay, and this is where the horses lived.
yeah.
And then the big barn, which I'm sure is, we can't see it in this picture, but I know it was there. What was in the big barn?
Well, Mr. and Miss Briggs had some horses, and they probably lived in the big barn. Nana had a horse. Can't remember her name. And so, but this is a pony barn, okay?
Pony barn?
Yeah.
Are these your horses? And see, there's Nana's in that picture. Look, she's smoking a cigarette.
Yeah, this is Sugar Plum. I wish I could remember her name. What was her name? Sugar Plum was a Swede.
Yeah, it'll come to you. You're not trying.
And you know what happened to them?
What?
We traded them for that 55 Buick that I drove down to NC State.
How could you trade your horses?
And
You weren't attached to them.
you remember the maybe the blue Buick, black top. Yeah, you do. I got a picture of you.
Well, there's a bunch of pictures of me as a baby with that car,
Yeah.
but I don't remember when I was one.
That's Miss Briggs, and I have no idea who that woman is, and that's the chicken house over there.
Ms. Briggs and some lady checking out the
Louise-
livestock barns.
Louise Briggs.
Yeah, I'm gonna hold these up to the thing. I'm gonna get all these
She
pictures.
was from Boston, you know.
Mrs. Briggs,
Yeah. And
where was he from?
he was from Jamestown, over nearby, because that's where the buggy company was started. And I never did know his dad. I met his brother, Gurney. You remember the piano in their house, the grand piano?
In Paul Nana's house. Yeah, the ball one.
Bought it from Gurney. Don't know what Gurney did, but they were all classic. And so they sent him to Boston to go to Harvard. I don't know how many, he didn't graduate, probably 2 years or something like that. But I'll tell you what, he had a lot of class. And thank God he was an influence in my life, because I'd probably be a damn in jail now.
What makes you think that? All right,
That's me.
there you are. You think that's the front yard?
Yeah.
Of the house?
Yeah,
And that's
sure.
Gordon Road down here?
Yeah.
Was it paved at that point?
No.
It's still a dirt road?
Yeah.
How old do you think you are in that photograph? Looks like about 9 or 10 maybe?
Yeah, probably.
Why the pouty face?
Who knows? Because I was a spoiled little brat. Only child, that's Sugar Plum,
Okay.
and a dog.
And so you can see the corner of the big barn
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
You recognize that dog? And I love this picture. Laurie's gonna like this picture. And look, see, here's another Oscarism. So that would be Gordon Road up here, right?
Yes, right,
Way back in the day, there was no trees around.
right.
See, look what he did. He cut a hole in the bottom.
Yeah, for the chickens to go in and out. Well, yeah.
Isn't that funny? Do you remember this? I mean, do you remember this?
This is before the workshop was added, so that went right into one of the garage bays.
You think it went right into the garage and not under the garage?
Yes,
well,
ma'am.
then there'd be chicken poop everywhere, wouldn't there be? Because they kind of poop all the time, don't
I
they?
never did that.
All right. And this car, do you remember this car? All right.
That's a bunch of chickens.
It is a lot. And that's probably not all of them either. There's probably, a bunch more.
Yeah. Wow. Mr. Briggs. Pony barn, and then I don't think the riding rink was there at that time.
There's your girlfriend.
Shirley Hawk. She's right cute. God, what an asshole I was.
How old were you in that picture?
What? 13, 14.
And where do you think this picture was taken?
High Rock Lake.
High Rock Lake? Is that the edge of High Rock Lake?
Yeah. And she was in love with me.
Oh,
Goodness
Lord.
gracious.
Why would she's like putting her arms on you all the time and
I
just
don't know.
trying to hold your hand?
I don't remember, but I just know she was. And she might still be around.
Uh-huh.
I have no idea. I think she went to Florida at one point. Nita.
Such a flapper photograph.
I know
That
it.
hairdo.
Probably in the 20s, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
And that is my mother and her mother. Alma.
Alma.
That's her name.
And that picture, that painting we were talking about earlier that had the eyes that followed you around the room, that was a painting of Alma, right?
I don't know if that was Alma or Alma's mama. Because Alma was Nita's mother.
Uh-huh.
So that could have been Nita's grandmother. I don't know. And I wish I did, but I don't.
All right, now this is
Oscar.
one of two photos that I now have that show the beginnings of the renovation. I just
Yeah.
found another one
Yeah.
yesterday that's tiny. I'm going to have to scan that at a really high resolution so we can blow it up and see it. But that's that one and this one probably taken about the same time. That
Yeah.
just kind of shows him adding on the back porch
Yeah.
of the house.
Yeah.
And there's no way I can tell who that is in this particular photo. But
Yeah, I can't tell.
I mean, the person's wearing shorts or a skirt. Would it possibly have been Nana in there?
I'd say those are,
Kind of stocky looking like Nana
I'd
was.
say shorts, but
Okay.
I could be wrong.
So you're taking a little break.
But if you stop and think and put it in perspective,
Uh-huh.
this guy was always doing something.
Always building. Well, I want you to tell me again about these photographs that we looked at last night and what that represents. And
Well, that was probably when he was in the CCC. You know what that was?
yeah, the Civilian Conservation Corps.
And he was working on stuff like erosion control and that kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
And that's the reason that at the very back property line, he had the ditches, where the water just couldn't fly down there. He had it where it,
I kind of remember that. I had forgotten about that he had kind of had a ditch at the back property line.
and I'm sure that he made that, whatever you call it, diorama, and that was his property.
And this is what later became this property.
Yeah.
But the house that's on this model is very different
Oh,
than
yeah,
the house
it
that
is.
ended up being there.
It is.
I mean, this is like a two-story,
I know.
1800s, 1900s style
Let me mention
farmhouse.
something else too.
I'm gonna show this and I'll get all these scanned and uploaded to this vintage.
Okay. So Papa Hall, Dennis Headley, was a contractor. He built roads. He poured concrete. I was looking at a picture sometime yesterday or today of the City Lake, High Point City Lake Park. Okay, they built the lake for water supply. There was a dam. Papa Hall built part of that dam.
Really?
Poured part of that concrete.
The original dam.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's still there as far as I know. And a lot of the streets in High Point, he poured the curb and gutter and sidewalks and stuff like that. I never knew him. I wish I had. He would have loved me. Goodness gracious.
So how long ago before you were born did he die?
Holly, I was probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 years old, and we can look it up, by the way, that I went to his house, which is up on, right off of North Main Street, Cool House, which is still there.
Yeah.
You've seen it, haven't you?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I really don't. I think it might have been torn down or something. It's not. It's still there, you
Pretty
think?
sure it's still there. And I went in to the living room, and his bedroom was adjacent. And Oscar took me in, and he was in the bed, pretty feeble, probably pretty close to death. And
Yeah.
that's the only time I ever saw him.
And how old were you when this happened?
7 or 8.
And you didn't see him before as a small child?
Mm-mm.
Well, that's truly strange. I mean, no Christmases, no family get-togethers, no sitting on his lap and whatever.
Nope. And I hate it.
That's really strange.
Because, of course, I went into engineering kind of. Mr. Briggs was the reason for that, but my grandfather would have loved it because he was in that end of the thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, at one time he had equipment out in the back of his, I remember, behind his house, like steam shovel and stuff like that. I mean, big stuff.
Mm-hmm. It's wild.
Roby and Rose,
Okay.
Yarborough.
And how did they were mainly Nana's friends?
Yeah.
And how did she know them?
Who knows? She met Rose somewhere. Rose may I don't know. Rose may have worked for her.
Mm-hmm. Here's a
And
couple
I don't
little
know who
kids.
those kids are.
Big dog in there.
Just don't know.
I mean, everything about this house is fabulous. You see the underside of the roof there?
Yeah. And I think that was still there. You know, when it's probably still there now. It's like tongue and groove and painted. Don't know.
Are you sure? That looks like.
Yeah.
Is that Tommy Gordon or that one of those boys? Or was this predate them?
Yeah.
I think this is the other side of the porch. This is not the side that the Naughty Pine Room ended up being on. This is the opposite end of the porch.
I think you're right. That went up to the front door.
Yeah.
And then when he did his thing with the house, they tore this down and moved it over.
And widen the porch, widen the steps.
Yeah.
There's the little girl again. And this is the sidewalk that was, I remember as a child, was meant as a drain. You know, Oscar was just like fixated on drainage ditches and gutters.
That's what he did in the CCC.
But I remember that being, what do you call it, concave or whatever, as a kid, and that there was in the steps, there was a hole on the bottom step that came down to this walk. So when you came out the kitchen door and you go left, right, and you walk out that door, and there was like 2 steps down to the sidewalk. But when we were really little, it wasn't a flat sidewalk. It was concave. And the drain pipe came out the bottom step. There was a hole in the bottom step. And I just remember as a small child thinking that, well, this is really odd.
But it was to catch the water and direct it into this little trough.
Correct. But that's a mighty weird walkway, you know, for somebody to walk on. Especially if you're crippled and need crutches or something like that.
That's me and Sugar Plum.
Yeah, you with your Roy Rogers.
And the chicken house. And the back porches now had been added to the house.
So you're probably, what, about 13 or 14 here, or 12, 13?
Yeah, somewhere along there.
And then all these windows. So when you say chicken house, what was it? I mean, I remember it as a chicken house, but it was pretty dilapidated at that point. What was it like when it was not as dilapidated?
Pretty dilapidated.
I really was always
I remember.
What, you just go in there and it's just a bunch of cages with chicken wire?
I don't remember. Up at that far end of it, there was some metal things that you put chickens in. Baby chicks and stuff like that.
Yeah, why such a big elaborate building for all these chickens? I mean, what was the deal with the chickens?
He raised chickens.
Did he raise chickens for other people? Would people come buy chickens from him? Or
I guess.
Why did he have so many chickens? I mean, that's way more eggs than one 3-person family can eat.
When I was that age, I took eggs down to the Furniture Exposition building and sold them. Probably 10 cents a dozen or something.
Well, that sounds like a full-time job with all those chickens.
But, I mean, hey, it was entrepreneurship.
I mean, and the doors, I mean, this was kind of an elaborate chicken house.
I know. I had no idea.
Walk in the door there, and there's another door over here, and all the windows and everything. I mean, that's kind of
You know, I'm not sure that this part of it wasn't torn off at some point. I just don't know. And that's Lib and Elaine.
So
And that's before the porch was added.
how did Nana?
But look right here.
What?
See, that's the edge of the house right
Yeah.
there. And that's the edge of the porch right there. So it did not wrap around.
So how did Nana know Elaine?
Well, they both worked for her
Elaine
in
and
the
Lib.
secretary pool.
Okay, and so Nana's the one that introduced Elaine to Odell. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
There's you. And see, I think this was the breakfast nook, because you can tell there's photos of the breakfast nook with Paul and Nana sitting in the corner, and you can see, I can't see it from this angle, but you can see the corner of the wall where the two walls meet, the perpendicular walls. And that was a very small bedroom, right? I mean,
yeah.
do you remember much about that?
No. Do not. Don't remember. And I don't know how old I was when he added on to the house. I remember the construction. I remember my bedroom. I think it was a .22 rifle that I had that I went off accidentally and shot the plaster out of the wall
In your bedroom?
in my bedroom.
The breakfast nook?
No. This was the new house. I remember nothing about living in this part of the house.
So, shot a hole in the ceiling in the room that Laurie and Nana and I used to sleep in. Is that what you're saying?
Not a hole, but it just in the wall and knocked a bunch of piece of plaster out.
How did the gun just fall over or something, or how did it?
Oh God, who knows?
I bet that scared everybody.
Yeah, it did. Hey, this is interesting. Back up.
All right.
I have absolutely no recollection of that. My first recollection, and I'm sure this was before the addition was done, Oscar would let me put shaving cream on the door to that bathroom and then shave it off with the razor. He would let me do that. That's the only recollection. And I don't know whether they hypnotized me or had some sort of a lobotomy. I don't know what, but I have no other recollection except for that
You
one.
just don't remember that house very much at all.
Well, Roy Briggs, Carolina Beach, I think. Him again. He was a real gentleman.
Only thing I kind of remember him a little bit when we were kids, and I remember he was tall,
Yeah.
and I remember he was a chain smoker. He just smoked constantly.
Did he? Okay.
Yeah.
Could be.
But yet he lived to be what, 98 years old or something?
That's Bud, and I don't know the kid. And that's Rose Yarber, and she's got a cigarette.
Yeah, they
there.
all do.
And then Roy Briggs. Let me tell you something that's interesting. I think he never did have a very close relationship with Roy Jr. I think because Louise, kind of had a wall.
That was his wife.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds a little bit like what you think was going on with Nana and Paul, right?
Yeah, some. But this guy took me, Holly, on a number of trips.
Just by yourself?
Yep. Out into western North Carolina, we went and looked at hydroelectric plants.
Just you and Mr. Briggs?
Yep. And so I was his surrogate son. Thank goodness I was.
God, I know, but I feel for his...
Because he had so much more going on than Oscar did. And I think back, and Oscar was a cool guy. But he wasn't close to me, probably because of Nana. I don't think that I'm exaggerating a lot. But as I think back, which I'm doing more and more of now, with all of the players, I just couldn't have been luckier. to have, because Oscar just,
What?
and maybe it's because she pushed him away so much or whatever, but I think maybe a little bit of it was that he was pretty selfish, pretty self-centered.
What, that you didn't have more of a relationship with him than
Yeah.
you did?
Yeah. That's Mr. Briggs' house in Emeraldwood.
Uh-huh. Did you spend much time over there?
Son. And I remember Ms. Briggs teaching me manners,
What do you mean?
table manners.
What, she just sat you down and said, here's how we
Yeah,
do this? And
yeah. And thank God. Because she knew, being a Bostonian,
mm-hmm. Did she have an accent?
I don't remember it, but she probably did some.
Uh-huh.
That's probably Carolina Beach, and Lib and Mr. Briggs and my mother, and I used to know her name, but she was a big part of their lives back then.
Yeah, she's in a lot of these photos. Whoever she is.
There she is again.
Uh-huh.
I don't know who the one on the far left in the picture is. And I don't know where that building is, but look at this.
The
This
casement windows, the
oh,
corner.
Very Art Deco.
Yeah, I love those kind of windows that wrap around the corner like that.
And there they are again at that same building.
So is that the building where they worked?
Mm-mm. It's probably a restaurant or something. And that could have been the Briggs building. I'm not sure.
Was
The
it
office
brick?
building.
Yeah. Do you remember if it was brick or not?
Yeah, the front part was. I think that's probably it again, and that's a lane. Oh, way back. That car was a slope back, like
Okay.
I was describing to you.
Uh-huh.
You see it?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
You think that was Elaine's car?
Who knows? I don't know. A nice car. Lib and Lane and that woman again. And I think that was probably the office building.
Mm-hmm. The Briggs Company.
Yeah.
So she really did a lot of stuff with the gals that she worked with,
Yeah,
right?
she did. Yeah.
These are interesting. So she had the
Some sort of a bridal
yeah.
thing.
And what I really find interesting is all those tchotchkes that are on this table there.
Yeah,
They were all in the living room when we were growing up. Every
Yeah.
single one of them.
yeah. And that's the corner, of course.
Uh huh.
And then that's the dining room,
Uh-huh.
which later became the entrance hall. And again, Holly, and it makes me sad to think about it, but hey, it is what it is. If he had had an architect help him, the way his mind worked is, okay, I'm gonna put a front door here, extend the porch, we'll make this the entrance hall, which was way too big. And then we're going to put this huge living room over here, which was out of scale. And well, it was what it was.
So I've asked you this before. Why do you think? I mean, that was just such a big house, and parts of it you would just close off in the wintertime because it's too expensive to heat the whole darn thing for 3 people. Or like when later on when it was just the 2 of them, you know, they'd close off the whole front of the house, and it would be cold there in the wintertime, right? And
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
so why their house was just gigantic compared to everybody else's house up and down Gordon Road.
It was. And it was so, in my mind, looking back on it,
Uh-huh.
out of proportion, out of scale.
Why do you think that he had to go and build such a big old house like that
Who knows?
in the living room? I mean, yeah, it did serve a function at Christmas when they had that big Christmas party there and all that, and maybe they did other things like that when
I'm not sure that addition, the measurement from this wall down to the fireplace was probably not the same length as this. In other words, he took the house and doubled the size of it. And then he said, okay, I got all this space now. okay, I'll just put this great big living room here, and the 2 bedrooms with the funky bathroom between them, and all this wall up and put the TV set over here. I mean, it's kind of like that.
Well, no, if I find it really interesting that the one room in the house that got the most use, other than the kitchen, was the tiny little den where the TV was. That's where everybody gathered, and it was like the smallest room in the house. You know?
And looking back at those previous pictures, this is where the people gathered when they came over there.
Yeah.
Instead of going in the living room.
Yeah, everybody wanted to be in the den. Isn't that weird?
It was too big and, impersonal, and just.
Isn't it weird? And the den was like, it was the epicenter of the house. You had to go through the den to get to all the other rooms, and just a very strange.
And of course, as you know, Frank Lloyd Wright sort of did the reverse.
Which is?
The gathering rooms were smaller and more intimate, and
well, I think that's why in a lot of people's houses people tend to gather in the kitchen, because it is more intimate.
Yeah. Oh God.
Now somebody got that fixture, right? Didn't Laurie get that fixture that hangs from the ceiling? I think she did.
Yeah. I remember when we were getting ready to put the house, when we were ready to get rid of the furniture and stuff, I remember there was a couple of fixtures that I wanted, and we took them down and just put this Lowe's hardware stuff.
And what's really fun is that I don't know if it's this one or not, but there's a floor lamp in one of these pictures that I remember I had in my apartment, in the Raleigh apartments, for the longest time. And I don't know what happened to it eventually,
but look at this arched opening.
Yeah.
See, that's different. It's special.
And it had that stucco on it, didn't it? Didn't it have some sort of a textured stucco on it?
Which again was Papa Hall's influence. He may have done it. I think he plastered that that new part of the house. I think.
And with all the walls in that house were plaster walls, right?
Yeah, they were. I bet you anything. That's the bride and groom. I have no idea who they are.
And so we think this was the breakfast nook in that original house. We've talked about this, and that this later became the den, and that these doors here are the doors that opened up from the den into the front entrance hall. Is that what we think?
Or the dining room at that time.
Yeah.
Could be. I don't remember.
But we think that's their house because do you see the corner here? The right corner of that chair?
Yeah.
I have 2 of those 2 chairs that used to be in the entrance hall of their house.
And that's fine furniture too.
And that's, I plan to keep those for the rest of my life.
Well, they are irreplaceable. I mean, you cannot buy them except in an antique shop.
And so what's interesting, if we're correct, and that was the original breakfast nook, and all those walls were wood, you see that wood paneling on the walls, which we're sure was real wood paneling.
Oh, well, of course.
So would he have torn all that out, or would he have just plastered over the top of it?
Who knows? Could have been either one. I have no.
Or did he take that wood out and use that for the inside of the Knotty Pine room?
I don't think that's Knotty Pine, but I don't know. I mean, he did stuff that.
And he would recycle things, right? He would take windows and put them somewhere else.
Yeah.
All these questions, I kind of wish he was here so we could ask.
No, he wouldn't remember them, though.
You don't think?
Well,
I bet he would.
He might.
And you have no idea who this couple is. Okay.
And that's Western North Carolina somewhere. Mr. Briggs Cadillac here. And we made a bunch of trips.
You and Nana and him?
No, the 5 of us. Oscar and Ms. Briggs are around there somewhere. And that's 50s. Look at those cars. They're all 50s. I think that was a 49, if I'm not mistaken. No, I think it was 53 Cadillac.
That lived?
My mother and lived. Yep. Bud. in probably Casablanca.
Really?
Yeah.
Africa? He went over to Africa?
Yeah.
What war was it? Was he
World
in
War
the-
II,
World War
yeah.
II. He was in World War II.
Yeah.
And what branch of the military?
Oh, I don't know. Probably just the Army.
Was he ever in active combat or just stationed over there?
I don't remember. He was not an officer. I know that.
Uh-huh. So what do you remember about him growing up? You said he was about 15 years older than you.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know who that woman is on the left.
Can't really see her. What do you remember about Odell?
Yeah.
And was that his real name or was that short
No, it
for
was
something?
Odell, but
Okay.
his nickname was Bud.
Yeah.
Where that came from, I don't know. And his daddy's name was Roy Carmichael, and he lived over on Deep River Road. And he was a nice man, but nothing. How can I say this without? Roy Briggs was different. Okay. And if you put him in a room with all these people, because he was tall, but you started talking to people, you could tell pretty quickly that he was a little bit smarter or more refined, I guess.
So is it true that Odell lived with your parents for a while as a child? Because I remember Nana talking about that, or maybe she was exaggerating, but it.
Probably not, but I don't remember that.
Uh-huh.
But Bud's dad, Roy Briggs, I don't know what happened to the mother. I think the mother was a Gordon, one of the sisters.
Okay.
I think she must have died early.
All right.
And so Lib and Odell, Bud, didn't have a mama.
So Lib was Bud's.
So Bud.
Wait a minute.
moved
Lib
in-
was Odell's sister?
No. So, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever known that.
Okay, well. So Bud went and lived with my mother and dad for a while.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know what with Lib.
Was she a lot older than him, or?
I think she was a little bit, but not much. But do you remember her at all?
Yeah.
She was a nice person.
Howard and Lib, and they had Ann and Sue, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember them coming over at Christmas, and they were
nice,
real
nice
sweet.
people. Nice people.